I think that we could go ahead and get started.
Okay. Good afternoon. Today we are all abiding by the CDC and the governor's guidelines for gatherings given the public health emergency. Under the circumstances, the governor has updated an executive order to allow for public agencies to conduct meetings via teleconference or video conference such as this. Please note the following meeting norms before we formally get started. This meeting is being recorded for public meeting purposes. If you wish to make official public comment online regarding an item on the Orleans Parish School Board meeting agenda, please submit an e-public comment card. For smartphone users, you may scan the QR code displayed on the screen now prior to the start of the meeting or within 30 minutes after the meeting begins. The meeting moderator will announce the speaker at the appropriate time. The speaker is to self-identify with the raise hand feature at the bottom of the web page, and the meeting moderator will unmute the speaker's audio. To comment by phone, please submit an e-public comment card at go.boarddocs.com/la/nops/board.nsf/public prior to the start of the meeting or within 30 minutes after the meeting begins. The meeting moderator will announce the speaker at the appropriate time. Again, the speaker is to self-identify with the raise hand feature by dialing *6, and the meeting moderator will unmute the speaker's audio. Each speaker should state their name and address for the record. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes by board policy. Emails sent to board meeting feedback@nolapublicschools.com or any messages via the chat or the Q&A functions will be noted in the record but will not be read as live public comment during this meeting. If you need further instruction on how to make official public comment at today's meeting, those instructions may be found at go.boarddocs.com/la/nops/board.nsf/public, which is the same page where the agenda is typically posted. Board members, your lines are muted upon joining the call. At roll call, or to make a comment, or to make a motion or second a motion, or to cast any vote, please unmute yourself. The audio button is located in the bottom left corner of your screens. Every action item will be a roll call vote to ensure we are recording the vote appropriately. Additionally, when accepting or making a motion and seconding a motion, please state your name along with that action. And then remember also to keep your phones and audio on mute if you're not speaking so that the broadcast is clear. The general format of the meeting will be as follows. An action item will be read. The recommended action will be read. And then I will ask for a motion and a second. We'll seek or ask if there's any public comment. Then we'll open the floor to discussion by board members, and then there will be a roll call vote on each item. So with that, I'll yield to the board president to formally call the meeting to order.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order the Orleans Parish School Board business meeting for May 14th, 2020. The time now is 3:06 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ashley.
Yes, present.
Mr. Brown. Ms. Ellison.
Here.
Mr. Cleben.
Here.
Mr. Koppel.
Present.
Mr. Marshall.
Here.
Ms. Newell Houston.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Ashley.
Thank you. Interpretation services are available during today's meeting. I'll yield to our interpreters at this time.
Thank you. This is Rebecca Fleming. I'll be interpreting into Spanish this afternoon. Muy buenas tardes. Si hay alguien que quiere escuchar la interpretación al español de esta reunión, pueden llamar al 978-990-5000. El código de acceso es 707717, numeral. Repito, el número de teléfono es 978-990-5000. El código de acceso es 707717, numeral. Gracias. Thank you.
Xin chào toàn thể quý vị. Cảm ơn quý vị đang theo dõi cuộc họp hôm nay. Nếu quý vị cần thông dịch, xin cho tôi biết. Quý vị có thể gọi điện thoại đến số 256 2774 504 256 2774. Xin chân thành cảm ơn quý vị. Thank you. At this time, I would like to yield back to Board President, Mr. Ashley.
Thank you so much. Let's go to 1.2 Pledge of Allegiance. Can I get everyone to state the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, 1.3, adoption of the agenda. Do we have any deletions, additions, or modifications to the agenda?
Yes, Board President Ashley, as to item 3.2, I just want to note in the rationale that is submitted with item 3.2, it is referenced that this is for operation of a transformation from K to 8, but that should actually read K to 8 charter schools. And that's on 20 of the documents that were submitted to the board. I'm just making note of that for the record. And also with regards to action item 6.1, there's no modification as to that item at this point, but note that item 6.1 may be modified after the executive session to raise any motions consistent with discussions that might be had in executive session. And there may be a need to specify with particularity contract amendments that will be discussed in executive session, and there may be a need to do multiple on that item at that time as the board deems appropriate based on executive session conversation. I can accept a motion for adoption of the agenda.
So move. This is Leslie Ellison. So move with the additions that have been added.
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call. Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Ellison,
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Ms. Newell Houston.
Yes.
Okay, the agenda is adopted. We're now at item 2.1, Mr. Ashley. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board adopts the minutes of the April 23rd, 2020 OPSB Board Business Meeting as approved. May I have a motion?
So move.
It's been moved by Mr. Ashley. Is there a second?
Second, and waive the reading of the minutes.
Second by Mr. Koppel. Do we have any public comments?
None.
Any discussion by the board? Then roll call, Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Ellison,
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Ms. Newell Houston.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are adopted. Now we are at item 3, the superintendent's agenda. I'll yield to the superintendent.
Thank you, Board Council. Good afternoon, everyone. Recently, NOLA PS celebrated our incredible administrative professionals, principals, school nurses, and our teachers. I am truly inspired by their hard work, ingenuity, and their dedication. Our educators have been dedicated to continue instruction and make sure our students are supported while we are still apart. As superintendent, I want to personally say thank you to all of our great educators that we have in our school district. Last week, for National Teacher Appreciation Week, we celebrated teachers with our NOLA Morning Bell campaign in partnership with Cox. Community members from around the city came out to ring a bell, some people bang on a pan. We just wanted everybody to make some noise to let our teachers know that we support them, especially during this very, very difficult time. I want to thank everyone, including our mayor, Mayor Cantrell, for taking part in the citywide celebration in honor of our educators. I also had the privilege of helping to surprise our New Orleans Excellence in Teaching Award winners, semifinalists rather, with drive-by celebrations at their home. At this time, I would like to share a video recognizing these outstanding NOETA semifinalists.
We started at 9 a.m. this morning, and so you've been rolling. So we've been rolling all day. So this is our last stop, but again, even though it may be out of the city, we have 16 finalists, and we want to take the opportunity to make sure that we show up in person to every single individual today. But to come to Sorrento was not a problem at all. We need you to know that because we're very thankful for the educators we have in our school system. We know that many of our educators do not live in New Orleans, so we are so grateful for you and your dedication to the students of the great city of New Orleans. So congratulations again, and we're hoping that as soon as things get better, we're able to actually celebrate you all and have the breakfast and the recognition and all the other things that go along with it at a later date. But we want this day.
Like just the honor just in itself. I mean, honestly, just being recognized as a teacher is the little thing, right? So it's like just the recognition in itself is always just amazing. Like, hey, good job, well done. And all right, that's enough to keep me moving.
This is amazing. This is I wasn't expecting this. It's a surprise to me, and I think I did from my heart. I really appreciate everything. Thank you.
Look, high five. All right.
So again, a big congratulations to all of our NOETA semifinalists. And as I stated before, we look forward to the day that we're able to celebrate each and every one of them for their accomplishment, but they also represent amazing teachers that we have across the city of New Orleans, and we're very fortunate to be able to highlight 16 of them.
So Doc, before you move on, do you have a list of the finalists? Can you just say their names if you have them in front of you?
So I can have Mary by the time, if you would, Mary, if you can pull the list up, and we'll go ahead. Thank you, Ms. Ellison. And we'll go ahead and actually recognize each individual by name.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. So while she's pulling that up, I will go ahead and continue with my report. And we're, again, just very thankful for those educators that we have in our school system. For many of our students, this week marks the end of the school year, and actually tomorrow will be the last day for the majority of our schools. While we'll be ending the school year differently, I must say that COVID-19 was a small part of a great year for our schools and for our students. Today, I want to acknowledge and celebrate the passion and the resilience of our entire community throughout the school year, and especially for the past few months. The month of May has always been reserved as a time of celebration. One of the highlights of my year is getting to confer degrees or diplomas upon our seniors for the graduating class. Unfortunately, this year, we cannot participate in such face-to-face gatherings right now because of COVID-19's impact on our schools and the city as a whole. As superintendent of NOLA Public Schools, and as a father of a member of the graduating class of 2020, I understand and share your disappointment and how this year has ended. However, I'd like to stress that your individual achievement is still an incredible milestone in your life, and that your loved ones are proud of you, and so are we. In spite of our current circumstances, I want to take a moment to applaud each and every one of you and just to encourage you all to keep going. I know there's a lot that's on our minds, but many of you may be asking, what will happen in the fall? I know this question is on the mind of every parent, every teacher, every school leader, every member of my staff. I wish I had a full answer today. But what I can tell you today is that we are working on creating the best possible guidance based on talking to medical experts, public health officials, elected leaders, and our school leaders. What's important for parents and the community members to know is that we will be prepared. We're taking a measured approach to the pandemic, rapid response, assessment, re-entry planning, and implementation. At first sign of the outbreak, NOLA Public Schools began the rapid response phase, ensuring that we took steps to bridge the technological divide so students could continue to grow and learn. We provided students with the nutrients they needed to succeed and work in close coordination with school leaders and teachers to ensure that remote coursework would continue to challenge our students academically. Over the past several weeks, we have been in the assessment phase. We have been working with the school leaders to reflect on what has worked well and to assess what needs to be the best support for teachers and students as we move forward towards the beginning of next school year under various scenarios of reopening. And next, we'll begin the re-entry planning phase to ensure we move towards reopening in a coordinated and a sound way citywide. To support this process, I will be leading a reopening task force comprised of practitioners, school leaders, teachers, social workers, and medical experts and parents and other key leaders. We will focus on how we will safely return to school. Together, we will produce the roadmap for our schools to follow under various scenarios so that precautions are in place to keep our students, staff, and faculty safe at all times. In addition, we're hiring a medical and public health advisor who will oversee the re-entry planning process and ensure that every potential scenario is reviewed with a keen eye towards health and safety of our students, staff, and faculty. This advisor will also be available to schools in the district to advise on actions to take and how to keep campuses safe. What all this ultimately means is that schools may not look exactly the same as they did before, but our goal is to return students and teachers to classroom in the safest way possible as soon as we can. Finally, we're also happy to report that schools, when they do reopen, that will do so with a unified calendar, which will be a first since Hurricane Katrina. The 2021 school year is scheduled to start in a common window of August 4th through 11th. Holidays and breaks also are coordinated across the district. Again, that's a great accomplishment. This should make it easier for families moving forward, whether we are on campus or not. Having the same schedule is a huge step, and we applaud all of our schools and teachers for coming together to make this happen. And at this time, Mary, do you have the list of honorees?
Yes, Stephanie has put them up. There you go.
Okay, Mary, would you go ahead and announce the honorees?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So we're pleased to recognize Robert Bassler from Abramson Psi Academy, Jennifer Boyce from Opportunities Academy, Talisha Bryan, Eleanor McMain Secondary School, Terry Clabo, Bricolage, Jennifer Como, Benjamin Franklin Elementary School, Henry Dreyfus, Benjamin Franklin High School, Ariel Jack, Arise Academy, Joseph Krasinski, Martin Berman, Taqua Lacey Williams, Dwight D. Eisenhower Elementary, Catherine Morales, Esperanza Charter School, Alexandra Mossing, Hines Charter School, Eric Schroeder, Morris Jeff Community School, Tara Thompson Antoine, Martin Berman Charter School, Blake Thompson, Livingston Collegiate, and Marla Williams, Martin Berman Charter School. Congratulations to all of them.
Thank you, Mary, and also want to thank Mary Garden, Board Member Leslie Ellison, Board President Ethan Ashley, who also were able to surprise many of these semifinalists. And it was a great day. And as you were able to see in the video, we went all the way to Sorrento for one of our teachers who actually travels to New Orleans every single day to go to Arise. And she's a very, very dedicated individual. And just like she was recognized, so many of the other ones do amazing things every single day for our young people. And for that, we will ever be grateful. Finally, I would like to announce my recommendations for the spring 2020 charter applications. Community Academies of New Orleans. My recommendation is to approve the application submitted by Community Academies of New Orleans to operate 3 Type 1 Transformation K-8 grade charter schools with independent LEA status to operate beginning school year 2020-2021. Additionally, approve with condition the application submitted by Community Academies of New Orleans to operate a 4 Type 1 Transformation K-8 grade charter school conditioned upon a review of the overall academics, financial, and organizational performance of all schools operated by the organization and approved by NOLA PS superintendent. My recommendation is to deny the application submitted by Generation Success to operate a Type 1 New Start 6th through 12th grade charter school in New Orleans. In closing today, I just want to say, I know I shared a lot today, but we've recovered from citywide devastation before. I know our community, before Katrina, you heard a lot about Hurricane Camille and Bessie and other disasters that have happened. I just want to remind everyone, as we respond to COVID-19, we're going to do it again. We know how to plan as a city. We know how to move forward as a unified district, and we're going to do this together. So again, I thank each and every one of you on this afternoon. I know our meetings are a little different because now they're virtual, but we thank everyone for being able to actually join in to continue to hear the work of the district and allow the business of the district to continue to move forward. And this is my report, Mr.
Mr.
President.
President, if I could ask a question.
Please. Mr. Cleveland.
Thank you. Dr. Lewis, I'm just curious to hear more about the rationale on approving 3 charters for community schools. I understand the 4th one is dependent upon an academic review, but in looking through the reviewer report, including our internal review and the advisory group review, there seems to be some concern about the academic section of the application. So new leadership, this is a new organization to begin with. Just would like to understand more about why wouldn't it be more prudent to approve 1 school and wait on the other ones?
So you're asking about the 4th school? What is your exact question?
I'm asking about why do 3 all at once now? Why not do 1 and wait and see how this organization does as it grows?
Yes, again, as you just heard my recommendation, and the 2 schools were part of another, well, currently still part of Choice Foundation, and then we have Foundation Prep. And the leadership that we have, of course, I'm just as other leaders, I'm very supportive of this leader. And even in the rationale from the third party, I know there was some concerns about the 4th school. And my comment to that is that, as you can see, I'm responding to what you just said. So I'm very sound in moving forward. We're allowing them to take on those 2 schools during the first in the first form of this contract. But if they're going to actually continue with additional school, is very, very clear just how we evaluate schools in those 3 areas. Those things have to be met. And if I feel that those things are being met by the superintendent, then they are able to approve. And so that's my recommendation. We have a very sound leader. She has done amazing things as even we merged Cypress and Foundation Prep. And I'm very optimistic about the work that she's going to do as she takes on this work that she has led through a contract over this current school year. So, but this is my recommendation.
Okay, just to clarify, your recommendation is to approve 3 charters now, regardless of how the first school or the first 2 schools do.
My recommendation is that moving forward, that these 2 organizations, as these applications were submitted, to approve where they will operate these 3 schools for the upcoming school year. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, I have a question, but I want to go back to the superintendent.
Oh, the other line. Yes, that makes sense. Ms. Ellison, please.
Okay, so I have a question. I just want to go back to something he said earlier about the reopening task force. Yes. Make a recommendation and request that you add parents or a parent to that task force, as well as or students to the task force.
Yes, I did mention parents, but also with students. And in addition to the task force, we have our advisory councils that are already in place, and those groups will continue to work during this phase as well.
Right, but I think to have parents.
Your point is taken, yes.
Okay,
yes,
gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, just at the table during the conversation.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Houston.
I have a follow-up question for Dr. Lewis regarding the his recommendations on the charters. Dr. Lewis, on the community schools charter, like, aren't two of those schools currently already operating, and this is a new organization that's been formed for their merger, so it's not really new schools opening. They already have students enrolled, and because of the merger of the organizations, we're just continuing their operation in their new management structure?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. I just wanted to be, I wasn't sure after you answered Mr. Cleveland's question. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand better now too. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that in the initial report.
Right, I think that's why the recommendation is approving the two that are existing and holding. I don't understand. I will say I'm unclear as I've read through these on the third school. That is why I see the recommendations on the fourth school contingent on the performance of the first two. If someone could better explain to me how the third one fits into the picture, that would be terrific.
I would like to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Will there be representation from the teachers union on the task force?
So I can give additional information on what this task force is going to be. What I don't want on this call here is to start making what this committee is going to be. So I would respectfully ask the board members that if you have additional clarifications concerning the task force, we can talk about it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Lewis. You want to address Ms. Houston's question about the third school?
So you're talking about the conditional approval, board member Houston?
No, sir, I'm talking about number 3. The fourth one is the one I understand. That's perfectly clear to me on the conditional use. 1 and 2 are perfectly clear. They're both schools that are operating right now. It's the third one that I'd like to get clarity.
No. And the third one is operating as well. It's part of the.
Oh, right. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Sorry.
So this is foundation.
Yep, got it. So those are the
Cyphers,
two. Those are
yes.
that's Esperanza and Lafayette, as well
And then-
as Foundation. So the
correct.
3 of them are already operating. Sorry,
Yes. Yes.
I was glomming together all of Lafayette.
President, I just want the superintendent just to clarify the schools again. They rambled through it real quick. Just say the schools that
Yeah.
Community
So.
Academy of New Orleans will be overseeing.
Yeah, so moving forward with this approval, it will be Esperanza, Lafayette Academy, and then Foundation Prep. And all 3 of these schools are currently in existence.
And the conditional rec is on number 4.
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you. That makes a ton of sense. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. I think we'll yield to board council to take us through the action item.
And we're at action items 4.1, school-based position salary schedule. It's recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board approves the revised annual salary scale to ensure an hourly rate of $15 or above for the OPSB staff working in the Exceptional Children's Services Department and OPSB direct run schools. May I have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms.
Second.
Noel Houston. Is there a second? A second by
Second
Mr.
by
Ashley. Any,
Ms. Ashley.
do we have any public comments? If not, any discussion by board members? Roll call, Mr. Ashley.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Ellison.
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Ms. Newell Houston.
Yes.
Motion carries. Now we're at action item 4.2, donation from the members of the Orleans Parish School Board. It's recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board accept the donation of its individual members for the purpose of creating a one-time monetary grant made to a high school senior with perfect attendance to incentivize attendance at a school. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Ellison, a second by Ms. Newell Houston. Do we have any public comments?
None.
But before we take
Go
a
ahead,
public,
Ms.
I want to just make a statement, and maybe the superintendent, I'm not sure. Just wanted to thank Mr. Duhan and also Jonathan Stewart with Allstate for making this possible, and my colleagues for providing this opportunity for a child to win a car, along with all the other partners that have partnered with us for this giveaway drawing for those seniors that have had perfect attendance in the public school system. So again, a big shout out to Mr. Troy Duhan and Jonathan Stewart and all of my colleagues for making this opportunity afforded to our kids during this time. So thank you guys.
Ms. Ellison, I would also love to be able to just shout you out in this moment for the leadership that you took with allowing our board to be able to do this work, because you were herding cats to get us here, but you saw the vision, and I appreciate you for leading us in this effort. And this is the right thing to do. I would encourage our board to do this moving forward. Every year we do this and give a car away. This makes a lot of sense, and I really appreciate your leadership on this.
Any other comments or discussion by the board? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call. Mr. Ashley.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Ellison.
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Koppel.
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Ms. Newell Houston.
Yes.
Action item 4.2 passes. We're at item 4.3, acceptance of donations from Entergy Corporation and through New Schools for New Orleans to support distance learning initiatives. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board accepts a donation in the amount of $100,000 from Entergy Corporation and $468,670 from donations solicited by New Schools for New Orleans to provide distance learning supports to New Orleans students in response to the worldwide coronavirus pandemic. May I have a motion?
So moved by Ms. Newell Houston.
Second.
Second by Mr. Brown. Do we have any public comments? I think we do have at least one.
Yes, we have Miss Leslie Lavoie. Miss Lavoie, if you could use the raise hand feature. Miss Lavoie, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. Good afternoon, Dr. Lewis, President Ashley, and members of the board. This is Leslie Lavoie, Louisiana State Director for Democrats for Education Reform. We're located at 900 Camp Street, Suite 360. I'll keep my comments brief because this is all such good news. I just wanted to take a moment to thank OPSB and NOLA PS for taking action alongside the school leaders and CMO leaders to ensure such a quick turnaround to get devices and hotspots into the hands of students. And furthermore, a big thank you to Entergy and New Schools for New Orleans with their donations as well. DFER is a longtime advocate for resource equity, being one of our core policy areas. And so, while Louisiana has a long way to go to ensure a 1-to-1 device ratio for schools, I just wanted to be sure to point out that NOLA PS acted far quicker than the majority of other districts in our state in response to COVID-19 and the school closure. So I just wanted to give a huge thank you to all of those involved as the leader of DFER, but also personally, since I contributed to NSNO's Technology Access Fund. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Lavoie.
I believe that was the only public comment card, or unless there are others.
No, that's it for this item.
Any discussion by the board?
I just want to quickly say, if I can, and want to acknowledge Ms. Houston, the work that she did almost immediately responding to COVID. And many of us were doing different things, but our board member Houston definitely stepped up and made some calls and did a lot of work. And there's no way that we could not be where we're at without her commitment to these issues. And I just want to acknowledge her in this moment because, you know, we couldn't be here without her. So I just want to thank you, Ms. Houston.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Miss Ellison, Miss Ellison, Miss Ellison,
It seems that we might have lost her. You may want to come back to her.
she's still connected. It looks like she's muted or something. Mr. Cleveland,
She's back.
there you are. Miss Ellison.
You're on
Yes.
mute.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Miss Newell Houston.
Yes.
Item 4.3 passes. We're at action item 4.4, ratification of funding for preschool expansion grant. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board ratifies the memorandum of understanding with Agenda for Children for implementation of the combined preschool expansion grant and the Cecil J. Picard LA4 early childhood programs, both federal subgrants that expand high-quality preschool programs in high-need communities. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Ellison. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Koppel. Do we have any public comments?
None.
Any discussion by the board? Roll call. Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Ellison,
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Ms. Newell Houston.
Yes.
Motion carries. We're at item 4.5. Request to approve the First Amendment with Concordia LLC. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board approve the First Amendment in the amount of $10,502.91 with Concordia LLC for design services for the Mahalia Jackson Elementary School reconfiguration and security renovation project, and authorizes General Counsel to prepare the contract amendment for signatures of the board, president, and contractor. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Koppel. Is there a second?
Do you have a second?
Second by Mr. Brown. Any public comments?
None.
Discussion by the board? Any discussion? Roll call. Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Miss Ellison,
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Miss Newell Houston.
I'd like to recuse myself from this item.
Okay. We'll note that recusal, but motion passes. Now we're at executive session. I'll yield to the board president.
Thank you. The time now is 3:42 p.m. May I have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Ellison. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cleveland. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Miss Ellison,
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Miss Newell Houston.
Yes.
Motion carries. We are in executive session.
Thank you.
And they're stating that my host has disabled my video, so it's not letting me start my video. Okay.
You're back up.
Yep.
The host has not joined, so I'm unable to start my video again.
Objectives as discussed in executive session and do that one. And then the second motion, a motion to extend the superintendent's contract. You might want to do the contract first.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we do have some comments, public comments.
Sharonda.
And you just so people know, whenever you do the motion, you might just want to reference what the two amendments are going to be and do the contract one first.
Sharonda.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Calling back to order the May 14th, 2020 Orleans Parish School Board Business Meeting. The time now is 4:53 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ashley,
Present.
Mr. Brown,
Here.
Ms. Ellison, Ms. Ellison,
She's back up.
Ms. Ellison,
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Present.
Mr. Marshall,
Present.
Ms. Newell Houston.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum, Mr. Ashley.
Thank you. I yield to Board Counsel.
The board convened an executive session to discuss two items. One, discussion of the character, the professional competence, physical or mental health of a person, school board personnel, and action will be taken under action item 6.1. The board also convened an executive session to discuss Larnette M. Smith, wife of, and Emmett Smith Sr. versus Daniel Busick et al., CDC number 2012-528. And I'll entertain a motion in conjunction with what recommendation was made as to settlement by board counsel in the executive session.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Ashley, I believe. Is that Mr. Ashley?
Yes.
second by Ms. Noel Houston. Any discussion? No public comments. I'll do a roll call. Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Ellison,
Yes.
Mr. Cleben,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Yes.
Can't hear you, Sharonda.
I'm waiting for you to call my name, Sharonda. This is Nolan Marshall. I vote
Mr.
yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Yeah. Ms. Noel Houston.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We're at action item 6.1. The recommended action is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board take any necessary action regarding the superintendent's contract and authorize board council to draft any documents needed to affect those actions. May I have a motion?
Yeah, I would like to.
I'd like to make a motion.
Make a motion to amend the action item to take up two separate matters involving the superintendent's contract. The first item being an approval of a one-year contract extension for Superintendent Lewis, and the second item being a performance approval of the performance objectives as presented in executive session.
Second.
I'd like to make a substitute motion on the one-year extension. I'd like to suggest that again be deleted or deferred from this agenda, and that I only learned about it when it was posted publicly, and we discussed it last meeting.
A second.
So we had a motion and a second by Ms. Ellison.
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Ashley, second by Ms. Ellison. And that motion was still on the floor. We do have a substitute motion, but we need to at least address the original motion that was seconded by Ms. Ellison before we can move to a second motion.
It's my, Sharonda, just for clarification, it would be my understanding that Mr. Ashley would have to accept the substitute motion or reject the substitute motion. And then we would.
That's correct.
vote.
It would have to be.
Is that
Yes,
correct?
We have.
Okay.
That's correct. And I want to be clear about what the motion is that's on the floor.
My substitute motion?
No, the motion that's on the floor, but that Mr. Ashley made, he made a motion considering two items. Performance objectives and a contract extension. And we have a motion and a second by Ms. Ellison. So do we have public comment? I think we do.
Well, wait, I'd like to make one more clarification. The motion is not to vote on whether or not we would extend the contract or to approve the performance objectives. The motion is just to change the action item to two separate action items. Is that correct? And then at that point in time, we would then have to vote on each item. Someone would have to make a motion to approve those action items for us to then vote on them.
I actually think the point of clarity is that a substitute motion has been made and seconded, it gets voted on. Depending on what happens with the substitute motion, then you go back to the original motion. I'm not entirely sure of that. That would be a question for Robert's Rules of Order and for you, Board Counsel.
Well, the point I'm making is that we want to be clear that if he doesn't accept your motion, he's not putting us in a position that we would then vote on either of those two, what would then become actionable items. It's just that they would be separate actionable items. Am I correct, Sharonda?
I believe Mr. Ashley's motion reference two items in a single motion.
Okay, so then we would be voting on both of those in the one motion?
That's correct.
Okay, so,
I can be clear, my substitute motion is purely about the contract extension.
okay. I'm going to suggest that Mr. Ashley does not accept the substitute motion. And then I would then put forth an additional substitute motion that would split those two items so that we could vote on them individually.
I will reject Sarah Houston's substitute motion. I'll accept Nolan's substitute motion in this moment, and then I'd move in this moment to approve the contract extension. After we vote, so we got to vote. That makes sense.
I would ask for a point of clarity, Board Counsel. I do believe that I was seconded in my motion, and so we do have to vote it up or down. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I'd like you to double check.
We can substitute motion unless Ash is withdrawing.
I'm not asking that it be withdrawn. I'm asking that it be a substitute.
Okay, we can vote on your substitute motion.
Yeah, Board interject. Ms. Houston did have a substitute motion, but I failed to hear a second to her motion.
I believe there was a second by Mr. Cleveland.
Oh, okay. Did not hear it. Okay, so we need to vote it up or down.
So vote it up or down, and then Mr. Ashley can withdraw or amend his motion however he deems fit. So right now we have a substitute motion specifically as to the contract extension. And so at this point, we do have public comment cards on item 6.1, I believe.
Yes, we do. We have 5 public comment cards that were submitted. The first speaker is Leslie Lavoie. Ms. Lavoie, if you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure thing. Good evening. Again, Dr. Lewis, President Ashley, and members of the board. Again, my name is Leslie Lavoie. I'm the state director for DFR Louisiana, and our office is located at 900 Camp Street, Suite 360, New Orleans, 70130. I just wanted to kind of come back to the board in regards to my comments on the same action item 3 weeks ago. I've had members of my team and I have had extensive conversations with board members, Dr. Lewis and NOLA PS staff, and I really do appreciate the time they gave me and my team to walk through the full picture of a superintendent evaluation and that process. And it is indeed complicated, but those conversations and clarifications provided to me were extremely helpful. I will say the current conversation is a little confusing, but be that as it may, I know we're all trying to work within the circumstance of virtual gatherings. So I do want to make that clear. And I also want to be clear once again that my concerns about this issue, and as I continue to learn about the process and how a leader is evaluated in this space, that my comments are not about the performance of Dr. Lewis personally and whether or not he has earned such an extension. This is just a really complex process that deserves to be explained to its full extent for us advocates and members of the public and the community. And that's that was the scope of my comments then, and those are the scope of my comments now. So all of that to say, thank you for hearing our concerns from last week and providing clarification to me and my team. And I look forward to continued clarification around this item. Thank you.
The next speaker is Pastor Tyrone Jefferson.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. If you could please just state your name and address for the record, please.
Pastor Tyrone Jefferson, the senior pastor of the Abundant Life Tabernacle Full Gospel Baptist Church, 1701 Franklin Avenue, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Thank you.
Of course, good evening to President Ethan Ashley and to Dr. Lewis and to all the board members. It's my pleasure to address the board concerning action item 6.1, Superintendent Contract Amendment. My name again is Pastor Tyrone Jefferson, Jr. I'm a resident of Orleans Parish, 1701 Franklin Avenue, and a product of Orleans Parish Public Schools. Likely 90% of my membership is employed by Orleans Parish Schools, attend an Orleans Parish School, or presently attend a school within the jurisdiction and control of Orleans Parish School Board. After much deliberation and reflection, I freely chose to voice my opinion concerning the superintendent's contract extension. The current superintendent, Dr. Lewis, have worked with the community to engage on key issues of enrollment, busing, school unification, and charter board accountability. The current superintendent has also worked very hard to maintain a track record of integrity, fairness, and accountability. And while things may not be perfect, his team has worked diligently to address community issues within the current political school reform context. Moreover, this board has evaluated the superintendent's satisfactory 4 times over his 5-year tenure. At this time, we need consistency in leadership in all areas, including the helm of the Orleans Parish school system. Some may argue that we are in a state of emergency. We will need a superintendent with established relationships to get all of the resources to which our students are entitled and to continue supporting our schools in the new norm of virtual meetings. A change in leadership could be detrimental to the ongoing response to COVID-19. For the reasons stated above, I am in support of extending Dr. Lewis's contract for 1 year, and we appreciate the leadership that you all are showing in this moment to address the current emergency. We hope that this board will act responsibly and offer our educators, administrative staff, and community some level of stability by extending Dr. Lewis's contract. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dr. Donald Baptiste. Dr. Baptiste, have you received the request to unmute yourself? Thank you.
Do I need to repeat anything?
Yes, your name and your address for the record, please.
Yes. Good evening, President Ashley, Superintendent Lewis, esteemed members of the Board of Education, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Donaldo R. Batista, and I reside at 185 Lakewood Estates Drive, New Orleans, Louisiana, 701. I come to you this evening to speak about the motion to renew Superintendent Lewis's contract 1 year before it is set to expire. As a retired superintendent of schools, first I wish to commend Board Member Brown for his foresight and recognition of the urgency that surrounds such a decision by the Board of Education to offer stability and consistency for students and families, especially at this turbulent time. And also to Mr. Brown for his obvious allegiance to sit in community trust on behalf of the students and families of NOLA Public Schools at this time, the likes of which we have never seen before. During my tenure as superintendent, I had the assurance and sense of being wanted to stay the course, and that was evident to me as my board did whatever it took to ensure intermittent contract extensions were offered at least a year and a half to 2 years prior to each of my 3 contracts expiring. They would say to me, Dr. Batiste, we don't want you out there distracted and looking or being courted for your next home. We need you here in this district. I want you to know that there are 2 sides to a coin. The people who spoke in April gave their view. I disagree with that view, and I want you to know why. You see, the other side of that coin clearly shows that Superintendent Lewis inherited a fragmented and sinking ship, and with his steady hands, he has slowly and strategically been able to right and stabilize this vessel. And as assuredly as he has kept his hand on the throttle during this pandemic, he will most assuredly need to do the same after this episode. The literature will show you the fact that it will take at least 3 to 5 more years of recovery before the pandemic just to stabilize the aftershock of this event. Let's be clear. You don't want a distracted superintendent, one who does not know where his board sits in times of crisis, either now or after the pandemic. You need someone who will remain focused on the need, giving the direction to a system and guiding the path of the on-the-ground strategy day in and day out. A 1-year extension of Dr. Lewis's contract beyond his soon-to-expire contract will yield you, this district, and most importantly, our students and their families with the peace of mind they justifiably deserve and will need to continue their quest for a quality education. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Baptiste.
Thank you. Next speaker is Valencia Douglas.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Valencia Douglas. I live at 5785 Lewis Freeman Drive West, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70128. Good afternoon, President Ashley, board members, Dr. Lewis, and ladies and gentlemen. I am here today to speak regarding Dr. Lewis. I am a retired educator of 44 years. I have been a teacher, a principal, and a superintendent. It is through these lived experiences that I speak. I first heard of Dr. Lewis through the media, and I was very impressed with the complexity of what he was being asked to do. Then I met him as a member of the Retired Administrators Committee that he established this past year. During this time, I have had the opportunity to observe Dr. Lewis. I have observed him to be a very motivated and involved leader. He is open to his constituents and has a laser focus on the needs of the students of the district. He works collaboratively with the various CEOs of the charter school. He understands his role, and it is a very complex role. Consequently, because he understands that, he is able to effectively collaborate and lead. I want to reference 2 instances as examples. Transportation issue with the buses and the development of common schools calendar. Both of these situations were not directly his responsibility to deal with. And yet he understood, because of the concerns of the community and the constituents, that he had a very important role. Dr. Lewis understood the importance of that role, and he worked very diplomatically and led it to positive solutions in both instances. This behavior required a deep understanding of the various constituents' needs, diplomatic communication skills, and then a very strong will to succeed. All 3 of these Dr. Lewis showed. Dr. Lewis's involvement created the opportunity for success in these situations. Another important characteristic for a superintendent is your ability to respond to criticism. He responds to it with a very positive attitude and transparency. He takes the time to listen and understand the issues from the point of view of the constituents. He then respectfully, another important skill and characteristic, explains the circumstances surrounding the issues under discussion.
Now, can they blackball you from? Not, I could not get in. I tried 18 times.
His openness creates confidence and ultimately trust in his leadership. In closing, I feel very strongly with the current pandemic and its complexities, the board needs to stay the course with the strong leadership that Dr. Lewis has consistently shown. Dr. Leadership, along with the excellent team that he has assembled to help him lead the district, will do so in the manner that is needed now and in the future. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mardell Early.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Board President, board members, and Superintendent Lewis. My name is Mardell S. Early, and my address is 11,110 Lake Forest Boulevard, 70128. It is great to see all of you in good health. I am in favor of a contract extension for the superintendent at this time. It would provide much needed stability and consistency for students and families in light of the uncertainty created by the COVID-19 pandemic. We need stable leadership during this crisis, which may last until 2021. A change in leadership could be detrimental to the ongoing great response to COVID-19 at this time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And that was the last public comment card received.
So we've got a motion on the floor by Ms. Newell used and a second by Mr. Cleveland. We've had some public comments. Is there any further discussion before we vote on the motion, the substitute motion that's strictly as to the contract?
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm offering this motion to extend the superintendent's contract on the basis of merit and district stability. My reasoning goes well beyond his year after year satisfactory evaluations, including his most recent one that we all completed in February. And it focuses more on his demonstrated ability to assemble and lead teams to respond and pivot well to meet the needs of our district, meeting the challenge of the moment. What I'll say is he's been able to do that whether he was ushering the successful return of our schools, creating one district, whether it was responding to the needs of our lowest paid workers to ensure that they were paid a livable wage to $15 an hour. We're the only government agency that does that. Or being able to make sure that we're responding to the needs of our students in this exact moment by standing up our feeding centers, making sure that we're giving students both Chromebooks and hotspots to be able to do distance learning. It's these experienced board members that and more that provide me with the utmost confidence in the superintendent and our team's ability at NOLA PS during this time to lead during this crisis. Now, look, let me say this. I've heard from several community members about this issue, and I'm glad to hear from more that just got the opportunity to speak. And I'm clear that providing continuity, during these times is imperative. I believe that our jobs in this moment, on the front end of this crisis, is to offer our students, our parents, educators, as much stability as we can so that we can focus our energies as a district on working towards recovery. I think it's been said before that this is a long-term crisis, one that may be within 14 to 16 months before we see any type of vaccine. The economic impacts that forecast that we've seen, the financial difficulties for at least 2 years or so, these these forecasts are serious. We just heard them at our last committee meeting. And the school accountability, safety, and other issues that we need to address will need to be addressed over a multi-year plan. And our school community and beyond shouldn't have to worry about leadership in such a time as this, not when we have a superintendent who has performed well through difficult challenges. We will best serve our students and families, in my opinion, and the community at large if we provide steady and sturdy leadership during this pandemic and continue to focus our energies on how working together we'll be able to keep moving forward. Now, for these reasons, I would urge my colleagues to support a one-year extension of Dr. Lewis's contract. And with that, I'll yield to any of my other colleagues who want to make a comment on this issue.
I call a question, Mr. President.
And the substitute motion was for deferral. I just want to make sure that's clear for the record, correct, Ms. Newell Houston?
Yes.
And now we are at a roll call on Ms. Newell Houston's.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a comment as well.
I call the question. Is there a second on the question?
We're going to have another motion that needs to be voted on. We can call the question on this substitute motion, and then Mr. Cleveland, you can comment before the other vote. Roll call, Mr. Ashley.
No.
Mr. Brown.
Let me make sure we're voting on Ms. Newell's motion. Am I correct?
Ms. Newell, you vote motion to defer the contract extension.
I vote no.
Ms. Ellison.
No.
Mr. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Copp.
No.
Mr. Marshall.
No.
Ms. Newell Houston.
Yes.
The vote is 2-4, so that substitute motion fails. Mr. Ashley, we are back to your main motion, but I understand that you want to make an amendment to it.
For clarity, you mean 2-5?
Yes, sorry, 2-5, yes.
Certainly. At this time, I'd accept an amendment to my motion to separate the two issues.
So moved. Second.
And
for
clarity,
I have a question, a quick question.
Second.
It's another procedural question whenever it can be addressed.
Please.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Our policy BCBD requires that all of us get our materials and supporting agenda 48 hours in advance. I wasn't notified of this until I actually was told when it was posted publicly and sent us 24 hours in advance. I believe that's right. I'm not, again, like the substitute motion, I'm not entirely sure. So I'd like you to look, because I believe I should have been notified by administration or by the board somehow that this was going to be on the agenda 48 hours in advance, not just 24 hours in advance. I don't know how that gets handled, but I would have appreciated notice.
Okay. Board counsel, in this moment, there has been, I think, a motion to separate the items that I had offered into two separate items. And I think there needs to be a second. Am I correct?
I made a second. I motion the second.
And the motion is as to the contract extension first. I be clear.
Yes.
I lost you for a second, Mr. Ashley. So that's what your motion is.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I believe there is a question by the community as to who made the motion to separate the items. And so let the record reflect that I made the motion, Nolan Marshall.
I believe that is that Mr. Marshall made that motion, to amend the motion. Mr. Ashley accepted that amendment to his motion, and Ms. Ellison has now seconded. And we are now at a motion on the contract extension.
Do we need to vote on the separating of the two items or not?
It's my understanding that Mr. Ashley has accepted.
Got it. Okay.
Mr. Marshall, his motion to
moved.
separate the items.
Got it. I
And that-
understand. I still have my question about notification of board members per our policy and the time frame.
Okay.
And we have a motion and a second on the floor. Unless there's any further board discussion, and Ms. Newell Houston, I will get that policy language for you.
I understand, but it's pertinent to this vote.
I'll say this, I received my information, I live in Algiers. I received my information in a timely fashion. I don't know where your information was sent to, and I don't know if other board members received theirs in a timely fashion, but I received mine. I live in Algiers.
Do we know where her information was sent to?
That would have been handled by the administration.
Okay, I would like to first, can I make a motion to clear the air on this? To first waive our, if that is indeed our policy of 48 hours, to waive our policy in this instance?
Well, I would ask a question too to Ms. Houston. Where is your information being sent? Is it being sent to you via email, or are they dropping it off at your house?
I'm reading the policy language now for your clarification. All school board meeting materials and supporting data shall be disseminated to the members of the school board no later than 48 hours prior to any school board meeting whenever possible. It's not a strict 48-hour requirement.
I do think it's important for us to be able to determine if this is an error by the district. Can our district staff acknowledge where we sent the information for Sarah? Was it to her home, or I just want to make sure that we are able to address this matter. I mean, it's really important that Sarah gets the information on time.
It was sent, this is Mary Garten. It was sent electronically.
Thank you. Understanding that, we have a motion and a second. For council, how should we proceed?
We are now at, if there's no other board discussion, we've heard all the public comments related to this item, which is still 6.1. We are at a vote. Is there any other discussion? If not,
Mr. Cleveland wanted to make a comment.
Well, I do. I can.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
I will defer to you, Mr. President, when the right time is to do that. Am I clear that this motion right now we're about to vote on is simply to split into two different action items, one to consider an extension and one to consider performance objectives? Is that right?
This is just on the contract extension.
This is a motion to do what? What's the motion on the table? I just don't understand.
The motion on the table is to is on the extension of Henderson's contract by 1 year.
Got it. Yes, I would like to make a comment on that.
Please, Ms. Cleveland.
Okay. I'm sorry to say that despite a whole lot of conversations with my colleagues and with members of the community over the past several weeks, I still don't understand why this became an agenda item last month or why we're considering it again. Upon starting my term on this board, I'm proud to say that as the chair of accountability, one of the first things I did was work collaboratively with you all to develop a more structured and rigorous evaluation process for the superintendent than likely the board has ever had before us. I believe our collective role in hiring, evaluating, developing, and retaining and making those decisions about superintendent is one of the most important responsibilities we have. And as part of that improved evaluation process we developed together, we decided together to change the evaluation deadline from June to December each year. And the reason we did that is because the two primary objective quantitative measures that we have for the superintendent's performance are the school performance scores, which incorporate the growth of students academically, as well as the financial factors, including the audit and the budget performance. And we don't have all of that information all complete until December. And yet for some reason, instead of letting this current evaluation cycle get completed in this absolutely critical time of the superintendent's leadership in this crisis, we are, in my opinion, jumping the gun. We're stepping outside of a transparent process that we should not make a contract extension decision now, especially when there's about to be a new board elected this fall. And it should be their responsibility to make this decision, not ours. This is best practice. It is a best practice for a contract extension decision to be made based on the evaluation of a leader's performance. And I want to be clear that this is not anything personal, nor is it a direct judgment one way or the other of the current superintendent's performance. I don't have the information to make that call. We don't have results on the current performance objectives. And we ought to before we do this. There's simply no imminent need to consider this decision in this moment in time. I ask my colleagues to allow my successor to be afforded the decision to make this decision with those of you who are reelected, because it will be that new board, not us, that will bear the responsibility and the consequences of this important decision. In closing, based on the reasons I've stated, I can't logically reach any other conclusion that the origination of this action item to extend the superintendent's contract in this moment in time is highly political, it's improperly orchestrated, and it's in direct conflict with best practice.
Or any
Ms. Kleinock,
further
I appreciate
discussion?
your comment.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment.
Mr. Marshall?
We heard, Ben, I like you, and I wish you the best. I think all of your comments were what you think is truly best, honest comments. But there's no substitute for experience. And we heard today from over 100 years of experience telling us that we're doing the right thing for all of the right reasons. We have evaluated this superintendent ever since he's been here. And my experience of being involved in education over almost 50 years now tells me the one thing that we have lacked in public education for decades is stability. Every term of every new board's term, we're always looking for that magic bullet to come in, right the ship, and take us to where we need to be. No superintendent has stayed here more than 3 to 5 years in decades. And thus, in public education across this country has become superintendents moving from one district to another, trying to succeed, looking for that magic solution. There is no magic solution. Private schools are built on stability, year after year after year, doing the same things. Public schools, and every 3 to 5 years, they're changing, trying something new. We have stable leadership through a very trying time. And we are more chaotic now because of this pandemic than we've been in a few years now. We have moved towards a very stable environment. The pandemic has struck us. We need stability more than we need anything else. And what you're asking for is to put us in a position where we will add to the chaos, a search for a new leader, because we may have a new board. We need to give that board stability, a leader that is going to be here, not looking for another job in 6, 7 months because his contract is going to be up in another 5 to 6 months, or people jumping ship because they don't know if they're going to be retained by a new administration. We need stability more than we need anything else right now. We have stable leadership. We need to build on that, not try to begin to tear it apart. we are doing the right thing, and we heard from over 100 years of experience today telling us that we're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Call for the question.
I actually have two comments. One is, I received my materials yesterday via I fell off because I was going back into my emails to look for when I received my materials. I received them at 10:49 yesterday via email. So that is less than 48 hours that I was notified, and I do have the question of how this got on the agenda in the first place. I remain by my comments last meeting, and in fact double down on those comments that for a myriad of reasons, the reason that we need to do an evaluation, complete an evaluation like we would for a teacher, for a school, etc., we should be following a process, and we're not following that by jumping the gun. We have stability. We will have a contract, and we have a contract with Dr. Lewis for 16 months. This is to try and make sure that this isn't, that we're locking in something in a time that is very chaotic, and we've got stability right now. We don't need to change it, in my opinion. And well, anyway, I go back to that about having not gotten the agenda. I went back and found it. That's what I can find. If the administration can find that it was sent to me electronically earlier, that is, but I do believe that we're supposed to have those materials 48 hours in advance as board members. And I said, oh, and my last reason is that I'm even more convinced that given our financial instability, and we are tying up another $250,000 that could be going for schools and children in a contract where we have stability now and we don't need it. We don't need to tie that money up at this point in time. So I said all along, this has nothing to do with Dr. Lewis. I do mean that. I really believe in process. I'm always a very process-oriented person, and would ask that we would wait on this like we did last month, and that we put it to rest and go focus on other issues for our kids without committing that money and without not following a good process. I think the board will continue to have the trust of the public if we would follow proper processes.
I think.
Mr. President,
thank you. Yeah.
I call a question.
All right.
We have a motion and by Mr. Ashley and a second by Ms. Ellison.
Ms. Williams, are you going to address my question about the receiving of the materials?
Maybe you fell off at the time when I was reading it. The policy.
Oh, that's right. I did hear that. I'm sorry. It is suggested. Thank you. I read that as more absolute. That's fine.
Ms. Williams?
I did hear it.
Yes.
I'm sorry. When a board member makes a motion to call the question, does not require a vote.
Sorry?
You're not supposed to vote on a call the question motion?
No, it's not a motion. It's just to call the question to actually take a vote on the motion.
Correct.
So any board member has the right to cut off public comment from other board members?
Well, when the question is called, that's a call of the question to vote on the motion. Yes.
And there's no more public comment.
Yeah. In the past, I'm pretty sure we voted on call the question. Maybe I need to get out my Robert Rules of Order book. But
I don't believe that has occurred under my tenure as board counsel, but a call the question means that the vote is on the motion that's on the floor.
And there's no more public comment. There's no one out there raising a hand.
The public comment has already passed. We've had all the public comment cards read at this point. And so now we're at a roll call vote.
Yes, before we have a roll call vote, let's be clear on what we're voting.
Yes, I'm about to restate. It is Mr. Ashley's motion to extend superintendent's contract by 1 year.
Okay.
So roll call, Mr. Ashley.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Ellison.
Yes.
Mr. Cleben.
No.
Mr. Koppel.
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Ms. Newell Houston.
No.
5-2, motion passes. And now I'll entertain a motion on the second amendment item that Mr. Ashley originally articulated on item 6.1.
So move.
Second.
So clarity for the record, it was a motion to adopt the specific performance objectives discussed in executive session. So there's a motion by Mr. Ashley and a second by Ms. Ellison. Any board discussion on this matter?
I call a question.
And I believe, I just want to confirm that we did not receive any public comment cards related to this particular aspect of it, correct, Ms. Beatrice?
No.
And so we are now at roll call. Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Ellison,
Yes.
Mr. Cleben,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Ms. Newell Houston.
Yes.
7-0, that motion passes as well. And now we are at the end of our business agenda. Mr. Ashley.
Thank you. Seeing no further items on the agenda, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Brown, seconded by
Can you
Mr.
wait just a second?
Oh.
There was another issue. Do we have to vote on that other issue, legal matter?
That vote has already been taken, Mr. Marshall.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
We have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Koppel. I'll yield to board counsel for a roll call vote.
Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Ellison,
Yes.
Mr. Cleben,
Yes.
Mr. Koppel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Ms. Newell Houston.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Time,
Mr. Ashley.
time now is 5:41. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Be safe, everybody. Be safe.